We need a doctor if we break a leg or if we get in a car accident, somebody to put us back together. That side of medicine is just fine. But, the other side of medicine where they're prescribing all these poisons and chemicals and, liver toxic, poison to your liver. That side of medicine is a total fraud. We need, empiric medicines from nature, harmless, non-addictive medicines that can heal us. Chemicals and poisons don't heal. And I think, it was mostly the Rockefellers that caused this, because, they started with the medical foundations and took over the medical schools back in the early 1900s. And of course, their friends and themselves, they owned all the chemical houses and chemical supply companies, What a great way to sell chemicals, Convince the public that it's medicine. And then we can dump all of this poison into them. And that's what they did. And the worst of it is, as far as I know, old John D. Rockefeller himself, he never took the allopathic approach to medicine. He used empiric medicine. And I think he lived to be about 100 years old. So I think we should all do what Mr. Rockefeller did. Stay away from the allopathic stuff before it kills you. Well, when my cousin died in 1972, he was 25 years old. And I was, when he died, the day he died, I was 2 weeks shy of my 23rd birthday. Now, up until that point, he was the first person I ever knew that had cancer. And he was also the first person I ever knew that died from it. We didn't even know what cancer was in those days. It was so rare. But then through the 70s, more chemicals, the earth becoming more poisoned, more prescriptions, and, and it just keeps escalating. One time years ago, when you used to go to a doctor, they might give you a prescription, but you took it for a month, and then you're healed. Today you go to the doctor, you get a prescription, well, you take it for the rest of your life. And then before you know it, you're taking another one, and another, and another, and another. So I honestly believe that a lot of these diseases like we have today that nobody ever heard of years ago, like Alzheimer's, I think they're actually caused, in many cases, from the medications the doctors are feeding their patients. You dump enough chemicals into an older person, and could they suffer from dementia? Well, I think they probably could. A little bit of this oil, and I hate these lame arguments. As a matter of fact, I run into one in Slovenia. We had a guy there, he was doing a medical presentation, about cannabis. And he came right out and said, well, there was a new study was just released, and it was proved that, children should not be around cannabis. And I asked him during the question period, I said, what's that based on? Well, he wouldn't answer. The study exists and that's all there is to it. So after he came off the stage, I got him outside. And I said, look, you know who I am. And I said, I want to know, where's the harm? And he looked at me and he said, well, you're from Canada. I said, well, what's that got to do with it? And he said, well, in Canada, you people all smoke, your marijuana, straight. You don't mix it with tobacco. And I said, yeah. And he said, well, no, over here in Europe, he said they all mix it with tobacco. He said, so the tobacco would harm the children. And I said, well, why didn't you say that when you were on the stage? The simple thing is about that study that was done in the 1980s. The healthiest babies born on this planet are born to mothers in Jamaica who use hemp a great deal. Now, if a baby is not harmed in the developmental stages in the womb, by the mother's use of this wonderful plant, I don't think a child of any age would be harmed. As a matter of fact, I know they wouldn't be. And this oil can be used for mental disturbances, like things like schizophrenia, and mental disturbances that, that really wreck people's lives. The oil, the oil can do amazing things. So, it's the reason I call it a cure-all, because I really don't know of a disease or condition that a person would not be helped if they were ingesting this substance. Well, they're doing it, today, you see these movies like Michael Moore put out there, Bowling for Columbine, the children went mad, they took guns to the classroom and killed their fellow students. What were those children on? It could have been Prozac and substances like that, because if you look into it, that's exactly what, is behind all of this. But they don't talk about that, because that would affect the pharmaceutical industry. The pharmaceutical industry is affecting all our lives in a very negative way. And what they're producing is not medicine, it's simply madness. And I think it's just about time that the public, came to that conclusion. You know, I don't understand, you know, doctors are supposed to follow their Hippocratic oath. The first statement, you know, first do no harm. And look what they're giving us. You know, how dare they, what they're practicing is not medicine. You know, they're just drug dealers, and they're harming so many people, billions of us. You know, and we, like a flock of sheep, you know, we've learned, or we've been programmed to put our trust in that white coat. And that's got to come to an end. I mean, I'll tell you right now, you know, you could get better medical advice from a guy with a bone through his nose or your auto mechanic than you can your average doctor. You know, these guys just scare me. You know, and one of the best examples, I mean, well, for hundreds and hundreds of years, bloodletting, well, that was very common in the medical world, and so was the use of mercury. And the one well, just as an example, like George Washington, when he died, well, what he was suffering from was a bad case of streptococcus. And so they took him in, and from what I understand, they drained about half the blood out of his body, and surprisingly, that didn't heal him. So then the next day, they gave him mercury. Well, that finished the job. So, I mean, they did these stupid, you know, idiotic things to patients for hundreds of years. They watched them die right before their eyes, you know. So, but these doctors cannot realize that what they're doing is actually what's killing the patient. I mean, to me, there's something missing there. I mean, where's the logic here? Any one of us, we would know the difference. Why don't they? Well, it's everything, you know. I always laughed at this when I first started doing this. I was always getting, you know, these, where's the scientific evidence? Well, the scientific evidence, it does exist. You know, today it's very easy to find. And it wasn't really that hard to find even years ago. But it's just like people, you know, and they'll, you know, even when you prove to them that it does exist, and the top experts in the world are saying the same things, you know, about this substance, well, why aren't you listening to the top experts? Why are you listening to a general practitioner who knows when this substance comes out that he's going to be out of work? I mean, it's all about position and paychecks to these guys, you know, the doctors, the lawyers, all of them, and the politicians. You know, they've just been programmed by our society to behave the way they are behaving. In truth, you know, I hate what they're doing, but in truth, they're really little different than we are. I mean, they went through the same brainwashing we did, you know, about this subject. So we can't, you know, put our total blame, you know, on their shoulders, because we're at fault too. I mean, we've sat here in this world, we've allowed it to happen, and you know, we've all seen governments do things that we knew were wrong, you know, but we've never stood up to do anything about it. So, you know, it's all our fault, and I think today the best thing we could do is get together and recognize the mistakes we've made in the past and try to build something that's better, you know, for coming generations. Because if we don't, it's going to be taken from them, and this earth will not be habitable. In 2008, you know, we put it up on the internet, and well, there it was right up on YouTube, you know, Run from the Cure, put out by us. And then right below it was Run for the Cure, put out by the Canadian Cancer Society. You know, what a joke. But, you know,
Right.
they are total frauds. Matter of fact, all these medical foundations, they're all the same. My father, the only organization my father would give money to was the Salvation Army. He said the rest of them were just crooks. And, you know, from my experiences with them, I have to agree he was right. Well, I mean, you know, it's like you said, you know, the Cancer Society, the Kidney Foundation, the Lung Associations, the Heart and Liver, you know, there's so many foundations and societies, but what are they doing to actually help anything? You know, the public have given these organizations, you know, in total billions of dollars. Where did it go? You know, and what good has it done us? You know, when it kind of tells you something when an ordinary man like me can go out and take a rice cooker, you know, a little bit of solvent and a pound of good hemp bud and produce a medicine that's better than anything, you know, that the pharmaceutical companies supply. Well, that should tell us something. You know, somebody's not doing their job. And but it's like I said today, with this wonderful medicine, once we get these strains nailed down, the most medicinal strains, and we get people growing, you know, these wonderful plants, then in no time, you know, we have our own medical systems. We have our, the way we can heal ourselves, our children, even our pets, because they all respond to this too. I'm very gratified now. I've kind of come to the point now that I actually enjoy treating animals more than I do people.
Really?
Well, they're much easier to deal with. But we've treated a very good number of dogs now, and people all over the world are following our instructions and producing the oil, and they're healing their animals. Like it's not unusual for us to get emails, telling us that somebody's dog was dying with cancer, and within a week and a half, it was totally cured because the dog's metabolism is so much quicker than a human's. So. This works on all types of animal life, but I think once more people come to accept this, and maybe it'll be a bit easier to deal with humans too, I hope. Take all of these pharmaceutical medications and measure their effectiveness and safety against hemp oil. And what would happen then? They'd all be off the market. It's insanity. They blind everybody. We use double-blind testing and placebos, and that is just a huge steaming pile of bull. It's just nonsense. Even the conception of it is nonsense. If you want to measure the healing power of a substance, measure it against a substance that's known to be a healer, and that healer is hemp oil. So, because I had the post-concussion syndrome, so I went down and he decided he was going to take me off this Tegretol, and he looked at me and he said, "Well, what would you like to try?" And I'm sitting there with my head coming right off my shoulders with this damn ringing noise, and he's sitting there asking me what I would like to try, and I said, "Well, you're the doctor, aren't you the one supposed to know that?" It just blew my mind. And then, as time went on, I realized more and more how little these people actually know, about medical conditions at all. They're just programmed into this belief system, and and for them to actually awaken themselves to the horror of what they're truly doing, to many of them, I think it's just incomprehensible. How do you admit to yourself after being a doctor for 30 years that what you have done is nothing but harm? You've killed countless people, with your treatments and medications and chemos and the rest of it. How do you live with yourself? But this is the realization that these people have to come to. We need real healers. We need real doctors. And, if these people expect us to put our trust, in them in the future, I think that's what they're going to have to become. We should just take, these families, these mega-rich families that have caused all this grief to mankind. I think we should take them into a common law court and put them on trial. And basically, all of the revenues, the funds and things that they have available, they're all the proceeds of crimes. The crimes that they committed against us. So why don't we just simply take them into a court, make them admit their guilt, and it may be a bit generous on my part, but I think we should just, once they admit their guilt, set them free and leave them with enough that they can survive half comfortably. But these people are not used to working, doing hard work like we have and stuff like that. And I don't think they would fit too well, into the real world. But I look at all of these people. I don't care if their last name is Rothschild. The bottom line is these people are suffering with mental issues. They have sick minds, and I think that after a short time on the oil, that their thinking might clear up a bit. But we should take the resources that these mega-rich families have, that the resources that they're using at present to run our planet, and put those resources in the hands of people we can trust, and make sure that that these resources are used to do good things for this world. Convert the horrible industries we have today over into hemp-based industries, earth-friendly industries. And we can employ so many more. Once we start growing this plant on any scale, millions more people will have jobs. Many people will be able to leave the cities and go back to the land, become self-sufficient, get in touch with nature again, and raise your children in a decent environment, instead of the back streets of New York. It's easy to attain a better world. But we just have to work together, and we just have to use common sense and rational thinking and we can achieve that aim. Well, right now, Max Egan is, proposing this people's mandate. That what he wants is people worldwide to present their governments with a mandate to do something about this situation. Lift the restrictions. Make the growing of cannabis completely legal everywhere. This is what we need, and this is the only salvation that I know of that we have. And if we don't use this plant, what else can we use? So, we have to do away with all these nuclear power plants and the use of all these horrible fossil fuels. We have to change, our paradigm. We have to change the way people are thinking. We have to get them back to reality. But, to me, the simple truth is, they go on right now, they say the earth is overpopulated and all the rest of it. But I don't believe that for a second. I think we could have double the population we have at present. And I think we would still have plenty to go around if this earth was managed properly. And that's really all we have to do. We have to put this, the future in the hands of people that will do just that. And everything has to be done with an open book policy to the public. Today, that's how we got in this situation, was all these backroom meetings, and secret deals. Well, if you're representing the public, there should be no backroom meetings and there should be no secret deals. So if everything is done with an open book policy, and we had people, say, representing different regions, people that, of high stature and, good moral fiber, and they're basically, they would be running the world. Why not? And maybe it is time for a world government, but not the one the New World Order had in mind. This one would be working for the greater good of every human being on this planet. And that's one thing we have to realize, that if some are being harmed, we're all being harmed. And no matter where on this planet that something bad is happening, it really should concern all of us. And we must, we have to get together and act as one, and to stop such things. Stop these wars. Stop all of this nonsense. It's all needless. That's all through mankind's history. The only thing we ever got better at was killing each other. And I think it's just about time that we brought that to a halt. And we need to evolve to a higher level. And I think we're entering now the age of reason. And I think we will evolve to that level in a very short time. And I hope not too many people, have to suffer along the way. And this whole thing started, it's crazy for somebody in my situation, because I've already achieved more than I ever thought was humanly possible. But it is a wonderful thing to be able to look at this and realize that, that even just one man can change the world if you just stand up to that world. And,
and you've done that.
There's nothing special about me. I'm just an ordinary person, but the circumstances that I was thrown into were extraordinary, and I just simply did the right thing, because I just felt that, we all have the right to this information, and it should be taught in schools. So I just wanted the public, to know the truth, and I didn't do this for fame or fortune. Matter of fact, I didn't want anything to do with that end of it. In the beginning, I went to people like Dr. David Suzuki, and I thought that they would react, but they didn't. So in the end, I had two choices: either just stop doing this, or just keep proving what I was saying. So I just kept proving it, and now the world is finally recognizing it. I think the greatest hero that the movement ever had was Jack Herer, because Jack was literally a war horse. He fought for 40 years to have this plant recognized, and I think this man certainly deserves all the recognition in the world. And the other hero in this is simply the oil. The oil itself, that magnificent substance that can do all of these wonderful things for us. And to me, it's just a great pleasure to be able to go out and do shows, with people like yourself, people that are awake. And the message we're sending is very important. And every time we do one of these shows, lives are saved.